1994, please come forward to receive the Distinguished Alumna Award. This award honors an alumna who has distinguished herself for her outstanding achievements in her chosen profession and who has made a lasting contribution in her field as a role model or leader for all alumni.
When Colleen Corrigan was 8 years old, an uncle returned from a trip to Australia with a t-shirt for Colleen. She was flabbergasted by the notion of such a far-off place. She recalls going somewhere like that felt inconceivable, but it also opened up a sense of possibility in her mind. Today, that sense of possibility is playing out on a global scale. Colleen is currently based in Cambridge, England, as a senior program officer with the United Nations, focused on protected areas and international environmental policy. Her work blends perfectly with her dual passions, working with and for the benefit of people and the environment. My career has required lots of leaps of faith, says Colleen. At St. Ben's, I had a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt on my bulletin board that read, "You must do the things you think you cannot do." And that has stuck with me at every turn. I think it's so important to trust that you are capable, to stay open to possibility and let your story unfold. And unfold it did. Colleen majored in biology at St. Ben's and found that she was at her happiest doing field work outdoors. After a stint teaching in Belize after graduation, Colleen worked for the Bureau of Land Management in Nevada, researched dolphins in Florida, her childhood dream, and served as a national park ranger in Maine before returning to graduate school in Madison, Wisconsin. She studied conservation biology and sustainable development, working on rural conservation programs that promoted cross-learning between farmers in Bolivia and Ecuador and farmers in the Midwest. Next, she received a fellowship to work with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in Washington, D.C., which included work with Native Alaskan communities on sea otter biology and policy relevance. Finally, she spent years at the Nature Conservancy, managing a global partnership for large conservation NGOs before receiving the opportunity to work with the UN. Despite a path with many unforeseeable turns, Colleen charted her course with trust, ambition, and a continued openness to possibility. Since 2007, she has supported the UN's work on ocean protection policy and community-based conservation, and that tenure included time spent earning her PhD. Her dissertation and the primary focus of her work today with the United Nations centers on the link between what's happening at the global level in terms of environmental policymaking and the impact of those decisions on local and indigenous communities. Colleen is also engaging with traditional knowledge held by those communities, knowledge that, she says, needs to be taken into account at the global policymaking level. Her studies shifted her role at the UN from one more broadly focused on international environmental policy to one that has a strong undercurrent of human rights initiatives within a conservation framework. Colleen's work is urgent, complex, and has impossibly high stakes. 8-year-old Colleen would have been wide-eyed, but the global community can rest assured that these really big questions are being addressed by someone who is exactly where she is meant to be. Oh, and that PhD I mentioned? It was completed at the University of Queensland. In, where else? Australia. Congratulations, Colleen, on receiving the 2019 St.
G'day, mates. Wasn't enough laughter in the first part of that, so it's an honor to be here with some friends as well from our graduating year, and it's been really fun over the last few days to just be back on campus learning again. And it's been really fun to reflect over the last couple of months about what I learned from St. Ben's and what I wanted to share with you. About 2 months ago, I was at a United Nations meeting on a small island up on the North Baltic coast of Germany. And about the fourth night of our workshop, I was sitting around the dinner table, much like this, with about 25, 30 colleagues, many who were friends at this point after years of working together. And I looked around and I realized I was the only American in the room, but that wasn't unusual. That happens all the time when I go to these meetings. But it made me reflect on a conversation I had with a good friend, Johnny, a few years ago, and he asked me if there was any point when I was very aware of my accent when I was going to these UN meetings. And I replied, no, I don't ever think about that because you hear so many accents, I'm not aware of mine. And he said, well, maybe that's because you're a citizen of planet Earth instead of a citizen of any one country. And I really liked that concept. It resonated strongly with me, and it made me realize my home is really just where I am, trying to work on issues related to this earth. And I feel that sense of home and that groundedness really came from two key elements in my life. The first one is my dad, who took us on camping trips all the time when we were kids in our Winnebago. And so there's a photo of my siblings and I and our dog Rusty, so we'd all get in the camper with our parents and we'd drive all over Minnesota to state parks and up to Lake Superior, and all along the way we'd just hear stories about our ancestry, our dad, our history, being aware of the knowledge of the state and the natural resources all over the place. And so I always felt very grounded and had a strong sense of place because of that. The other key reason that really keeps me grounded is what I learned here at St. Ben's as well. And because I was a biology major, I spent a lot of time outside. I had the chance to track chickadees in the woods over at St. John's and did a lot of dipping for plankton in Lake Sag and being out on the canoe. And I took a class, Minnesota Authors, with John Hassler, which is still one of my favorites to this day. And so there was just a lot that I was learning during that period that gave me an even stronger and deep sense of space here and sacredness of this geography where we all can call home. The other part of what really resonated with me from St. Ben's were the values of community and service. And so my junior year, I went on a service break trip, spring break trip to Turtle Mountain Indian Reservation in North Dakota. And to this day, the friends that I made on that 1 week trip are still my closest and dearest friends and my soulmates. So I'm grateful for that understanding of service. And the following year after graduation, I went with fellow Bennies and Johnnies down to Belize to teach for a couple of years and also learned so much from that sense of intentional community. So those experiences really grounded me in my sense of who I am and where I come from in Minnesota and have allowed me to work on a much broader global scale and still understand where I belong and where I can return to. So that work involves working with Indigenous peoples and trying to do work on protection of our most special places on this planet. So I'll just leave you with a thought about where is home for you? What does home mean to you here at St. Ben's? We live on a spectacular planet that we share with the Amazonian rainforest, with the Mississippi River, with the loons on the lakes. And so when you go outside after tonight, think about what you're getting from sharing the same air with the trees. What are they giving to us? And what can we give back to them, back to this earth in this ecological crisis? So I leave you with this. is your home? Where is your home? So thank you so much.